the presentation of the report of Mrs. Kamel was broadcast all across Canada. Yeah. And now you're coming back today and you have this definition in Le Petit Robert of what systemic racism or the word systemic means. Are you humanly capable of recognizing there is systemic racism in Quebec with this specific story and other stories?
I'm capable to say that what happened to Mrs. Echaquan is terrible. And few employees, not only one, few employees didn't deliver the right services to her. It's unacceptable. And we already made some changes. We now have somebody on the board in Joliette. We have somebody as the assistant of the president. We have some people also that are making sure that each patient are followed in the system. So I do agree. The only place where I don't agree is when we say that there's a system. Because for me, a system is coming from upstairs, coming from the top people, and I don't see this in the healthcare network, for example. So what I say is instead, and we know in Quebec we have a certain percentage of Quebecers saying that there is systemic racism, and a part of the population saying there's no systemic racism. But almost all Quebecers, they say there is some racism in Quebec, and we have to fight all together. Stop dividing Quebecers, all work together. And I think also we have to admit that, yes, there is some racism in Quebec, but less than many other places.
Why do you say so?
Because we are a progressist society. In Quebec, and I think that the situation is not perfect, but it's not as worse as it is in some part of the United States, for example.
What are you going to do with actions now? Like, you have to prove that you're on top of things if you recognize racism, prejudices, discrimination now. What are the actions you'll put in place to make sure that you are on top of things, even though you don't recognize that the system is racist?
Yeah. So we send a clear message to all top management people in our different system not to tolerate that and correct that if it happens. Second, we started already to train all our employees. For example, in Lanaudière, we already trained 12,000 employees, telling them exactly the context and what the indigenous people live in the past. So I think that right now there's a clear message. We will not tolerate that some services be different to First Nation than they are to other people in Quebec.
Is there a concern that by acknowledging systemic racism, the government could open itself up to certain lawsuits? Is that a concern on your part?
I think that I only take the definition of system and I say we don't have a system top to bottom, and it's a question of fact. That's it. That's all.
You mentioned there's two groups in the province.
Right.
The group that says there is systemic racism, are they wrong in your mind?
I think they don't use the same definition. I think that they use a kind of definition saying that, for example, in Joliette, there were more than one individual. So they were a group. And because they were a group, they called that a system. But for me, a system, it's all the system. And for me, it doesn't apply to the situation in Quebec.
But if you're using two different definitions, do you worry that you won't be able to come together as a province and improve the situation?
At the opposite, I think that if we use the word racism, we are all together. We put all Quebecers, we all believe that there is racism, and we all want to fight against racism.
So you agree, when you read Mrs. Camel's report, like you agree with her, most of her points, like except the first recommendation.
Exactly. And even Mrs. Camel, she's saying that we have not to put all the emphasis only on words. We have to put emphasis on actions to change the situation. And on that, I fully agree.